Beechwood. Now this just went into private hands. It was open to the public for many years, and they had many weddings here. In fact, this whole summer was booked up, and somebody just bought it, and I don't know if they're going to honor all those weddings. I feel sorry for the brides. They have to find another venue. But this was owned by Caroline Astor. So this was, you all heard of the Astor family. And they were one of the first in Newport. And Caroline apparently was the real dom of society and decided that there were really only 400 people worth knowing. And so she had the 400, and her ballroom was built just big enough to hold those 400 people. And if you didn't make that list, you weren't anything important. But the Vanderbilts came along, and they weren't on that list. They eventually bought their way in. This on the left, which looks like the White House, is all condominiums now, broken up, been added to. And this is Rosecliff on the right. And this is a beautiful home, also open to the public. Big ballroom in the middle section. And this is where a few movies have been filmed. If anybody saw the Great Gatsby, that was filmed there. And a few, a film with Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you can imagine. So some of the newer homes, like this on the right, would have replaced what would have been the big mansions. So as more and more money came from the Astors and the Vanderbilts, they tried to outdo each other and just built bigger and bigger. And basically modeled after a lot of French chateaus. So you see, but Newport also attracted a lot of famous architects. Look there on that right, that big tree stump, that blew over this winter. Newport is also known for, look at these trees, very different exotic trees. Because as I mentioned, in the colonial time, Newport was really stripped of most of their trees to use for wood. So when people started to build these homes, they could afford to bring in exotic specimens of trees from all over. The Breakers is down here on the right, further down. But these trees were brought in from all over the world, and they survive here because of the climate. It's a little bit more temperate than the mainland, and so in the summer it's cooler, and in the winter it's a little warmer. So you see some very interesting European weeping beech trees and a lot of Japanese. Now this house on the right, tucked away, it's a museum of art that is American illustrative art. And it was also at one time a private home, and then it became a school. So as many of them did, they would donate them to schools for tax reasons, so they could deduct it. But then the schools failed, and then they went back into either private hands or were torn down. This is open to the public on the right, Chateau-sur-Mer, and is owned by the Preservation Society, another beautiful piece of property. This was one of the first home built here in the 1850s, was not that large, by the Wetmore family. And he became a governor of Rhode Island. But then when the next family arrives, they add on to it, make it even bigger. But this is Chateau-sur-Mer, so at one point the property went all the way down to the water. Now a lot of the property has been sold off. So the Preservation Society has a big job to try to maintain these homes. You can imagine, even with the admission fee and some membership dues, it barely pays for when they have to put a new roof on or maintain them. Some of them close in the winter, and I think the breakers and the elms that you're going to see are still open in the winter. So we're coming closer to town, so you can see the homes that are a little less grand, but still very beautiful. As I was mentioning to somebody, we've just made a very big circle. So we're going to be stopping in a few minutes at the Elms, which is a beautiful home by the Preservation Society, and you'll get to spend some time there. But from there back to the ship is only 10 minutes. So I don't want you to worry that we have to go back the way we came, because you won't miss your ship. We'll have an hour at the Elms. Now, a lot of the, as I said, some of the private homes were sold off to schools. Well, one of them was Salve Regina, and it was just one building, and they had built themselves into a world-class college. Salve Regina University is a Catholic Sisters of Mercy. It's now co-ed, and they compete in a lot of the sports, and they own a lot of the buildings. So students get to live in some of these mansions. And like everywhere, there's a town gown controversy. Usually it's very good, although the other day they caught 3 Salve students breaking into the breakers. I guess maybe it's a rite of passage or something, but obviously that's not something that they want. And then at one time, obviously, some of the homes that were torn down, and they built either public housing on the left or more affordable apartments. But that is pretty much how all of Bellevue would have looked if the Preservation Society hadn't been formed in the mid-1940s and said somehow we have to save some of these mansions. So the one you're going to see, the L,